How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to Understanding Anxiety with Trace Balding. So in the last video, we talked about the concept of filling the holes in your bucket, kind of the different concepts that play into that, like the snowball effect, how we would do it as far as identifying patterns and kind of tweaking what we were doing in our daily lives, with the main goal being to give us more time in that fermentation period of the cycle. So today we're going to take a little bit more introspective approach, because as I said previously, those things that you can do are going to be intensely personal. So today we're going to go over a couple of more concepts that are going to help you isolate what is going to work for you and give you the tools that you need in order to make progress with yourself. So to start off with, I'd like to start with this concept with the root causes. So after having you fill out the needs worksheet, you basically have like the fundamentals as far as the knowledge that you would need about your circumstances in order to make progress. And I'm sure many of us are already aware of our triggers, what they are, because we're trying to avoid them or we're very cautious of them in that sense. So I'm not going to spend too much time on identifying your triggers. For the most part, you should be somewhat aware of those. What I am going to spend some time on is actually identifying the root causes of those triggers, because that's where the key lies, actually. The trigger itself is really just based on the circumstance, right? So you have multiple triggers that happen in specific circumstances. And what that actually is that the root cause is finding a scenario to present itself. So what we really want to focus on is the root causes. And you can kind of use that needs worksheet to kind of help you find out what some of your root causes are. For myself, if y'all watched my other video about my story, it had a lot to do with my physical body. So a lot of the physical needs were very important to me as far as what was triggering some of these root causes for me. But there's a few different things that go into this root cause. So we have your belief system. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining that as far as what's good or bad. Everybody's belief system is different. Everybody's belief system is going to be very unique and personal, and my job here is not to convince you to change your beliefs. That's something that only you can do. If I were to try, it's only going to get me, resentment, right? But your beliefs follow into your root causes in the sense that what you believe around the world around you is what contributes towards the circumstances needed for these things to happen, or the imbalances that causes, anxiety or trigger. So if you go back over your needs worksheet and you kind of write down a few triggers, you can start to see how, okay, well this means that I believe this, right? And it may be something that you're not really aware of. For myself, it was that I believed that I had no control over my physical experience. And I still believe that that's true to some degree or another, but I definitely feel now that I've changed that belief to where now I can identify that there are things that I can do to affect my physical experience. So the beliefs go into the root causes and definitely help shape some of that and form, kind of the core of these root causes. So the next thing I want to talk about is the patterns that we have in our daily life, and we touched on this in the last video as well. How your patterns kind of play into the cycle of anxiety, how they contribute toward the holes in your bucket, or even are filling up your bucket. And so the patterns are also going to help catalyze these root causes and turn them into triggers, because if you combine your beliefs with your patterns, then obviously you're living your life a certain way due to your beliefs, which is perfectly normal. But the issue is that that's creating some sort of imbalance that is the root cause of the anxiety. And then next, of course, is the needs. As I was stating in the needs video, if you are low in certain needs, if you have needs that aren't being met appropriately or well enough, this definitely causes a deficit or an imbalance within yourself, and these all contribute towards the root cause. So the goal here today is to help you kind of stitch this all together. The concepts that we've talked about in the last video, I want to try and help you to isolate and do a lot of introspection today as far as what are the root causes of the anxiety. Because once we've started to identify the root causes of the anxiety, it's going to be much easier for us to find out what needs we need to address specifically, what patterns it is that we need to tweak and to change or to get rid of or add on to. And also it's going to help us identify beliefs that we may be living by that we're not aware of, or even if we need to change those beliefs and get some new experience that says, okay, this isn't accurate, it's time to change that. So, but that starts with finding the root cause. So if you combine this concept with the concepts of filling the holes in your bucket, as well as the cycle of anxiety, the needs worksheet that I had you guys work on, these are all tools to help you do the introspection that's required to find your root causes so that we can start to make real progress with this. The next topic that I want to talk about is actually your state. So this is a Taoist principle that I have drawn over here. And this represents your state of being. I won't necessarily say your state of mind because that's kind of incorporated into this. But your state is made up of 3 parts. So you have your focus, your physiology, and your language. So we've touched on the physiology portion of this before with anxiety, how your cells actually become chemically addicted to the physical process of anxiety, and help contribute towards that cycle starting over and happening again. And so you can see how your physiology also during a panic attack or while you're experiencing anxiety, you change what actions what you're doing. For myself, typically it was I need to get back to a safe place. I need to sit down and not do anything. Sometimes I would try a distraction. So during your process of anxiety, you're changing your physiology and you're changing what you're doing with your body. And that has a big effect on your state. And if that change in your physiology is conducive towards anxiety, then you can see how that would just kind of help continue the process. The next thing I want to talk about is your focus. This is probably one of the more important parts of the anxiety, because typically the anxiety we would like to think is a mental happening. But what this boils down to is that when you're presented with the trigger, your mind is giving you like a worst case scenario. Typically it's giving you something to be afraid of. And what happens is that in our struggle to avoid that situation or avoid that trigger, we actually end up focusing on it more, because we're saying, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, but we're still focused on that. I don't want to have a panic attack. I don't want to have a panic attack. I don't want to experience this. I don't want to go through this again. But we're still focusing on that experience. So our focus is still there. Our physiology when we're triggered is usually going to be conducive to that. So those 2 things are helping bring our state closer towards the state of a panic attack. And then the last thing, of course, is the language. How do we define the experience? How are we expressing it to ourselves? How are we talking about it to others? When you experience a trigger, do you say, oh, this is a trigger, this is going to cause me problems, I'm probably going to have a panic attack from this? When we're considering going into a circumstance that maybe would cause a trigger for us, are we saying, I'm afraid to do that because it might cause a panic attack? This also contributes towards our state of being. And so you can see how between these 3 aspects, what we're saying about it, what we're focusing on, and what we're physically doing, all contribute towards the cycle of anxiety. They contribute towards how our patterns are working out. They contribute towards our actual anxiety level itself. And this is also why it's usually so difficult for us to pull ourselves back out of a panic attack. When you're in that, your focus is on the panic attack. Your physiology is responding to that. On a cellular level, you're responding to that experience. Even on a conscious level, this isn't very common, but sometimes it's sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth. Like, that doesn't happen a lot. It may happen to you, but whatever physical actions that we're taking that we normally associate with a panic attack, when we start getting triggered, we start to do those actions preemptively, and that causes us to associate those actions with the panic attack. The same thing with our language. We talk about a panic attack a certain way, as if it's going to happen, as if it has to be avoided those contribute towards the panic attack itself, and they all feed into it to help make it stronger and more powerful. So your state is a very important part of what contributes to a panic attack, but not just that. It's also what we can focus on and what we can attribute to kind of change how we associate with and how we deal with our anxiety. So let's say, for instance, that I've done the needs worksheet. I've written down my triggers. I've kind of found some root causes. Maybe I discovered a new belief that I didn't realize I was living by. I've identified my patterns, and I'm trying to tweak those a little bit. I'm working on my needs as far as getting those met better. So then I say, okay, well, what else can I do to, while I'm experiencing anxiety? These other things are great when I'm not in that state, when I'm not feeling anxious. So what you can do is you can say, okay, well, let's come up with a game plan a little bit here. The next time I'm feeling anxious, what can I do about one of these things? And it doesn't have to be all of them, just one of them. What can I change about one of these to start to kind of pull away from that cycle of the experience, right? Maybe that's changing what you're planning on doing in that time. If I usually go and sit by myself or lay in bed during a panic attack, maybe I'll try walking around outside. Maybe that just that simple change of what you're actually doing is going to change your state, even just a little bit. And you may find that if you have a better experience, then you can try that again and see if you can start to kind of shift your state a little bit during the anxiety. Or maybe it's your language. You say, maybe I should call a friend and say, hey, I'm experiencing some anxiety. I just want to talk to somebody about it, and they talk to them about what I'm experiencing. And, hopefully you have somebody who is, who can talk to you in a sense that they might say, well, don't say that it's unavoidable, or don't say that you have to reject it. Maybe don't say that you're stuck like this forever. Try to have them to guide you to say more positive or even just neutral things. Like instead of saying, I hate that I'm having this experience, this is horrible experience, maybe have them say, well, you're just having an experience. You're just experiencing anxiety. The next thing you could try to do is you could probably try and change your focus a little bit. And this is going to kind of tie in with some other things that I'll mention later on, but maybe you want to, instead of focusing on the physical experience of the anxiety and focusing on the fear, maybe we can shift it over to a focus of this is just another cycle. This is just something that I'm going to go through. It's going to pass. And even if you're just focusing on that, it's going to pass. That can help change your state and kind of bring you to the other side of that experience. Again, I know these concepts are kind of abstract. They're not something that you're going to be able to apply immediately. A lot of this stuff takes a lot of work from you guys. You're going to have to spend some time, just thinking about it. Maybe do some meditation about it if that's your thing. But whatever it is, I want you to take these concepts and see how you can apply them. Like I said, I can give you examples, but it's going to be unique to you. Of course, you can send me a DM if you like, but ultimately, if I can kind of get these concepts through to you, then you should be able to make progress with yourself. And that's where the goal lies anyways. I can't fix it for you. I said at the beginning, this is going to be up to you to do the work. I'm here to help you understand it better. I'm helping you to, to know what to do in the process instead of feeling lost. So that's kind of all I have for this section right now. We're gonna talk some more. I got some more videos coming, but don't feel like that you have to rush with this. These last couple of videos are very abstract and they're very personal. So you have to take some time to make sure that you're applying them in a way that works for you. In any case, guys, that's what I have for now. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message either on Facebook or my YouTube. I'm here to help you guys out if you have any questions. But I'll see you next time.